fans, friends and subscribers, welcome to the Cricket Happening Show with your host Ram. As usual, I am out here with the Cricket World Cup 2015 cricket summary. Well, we had two matches. So yesterday, the World Cup 2015 finally kicked off at the Hagley Oval in Christchurch, and well, I would say the host and the co-host, host Australia and the co-host, started off with a bang on a lovely day. This on a Valentine's Day when they actually defeated their respective teams. New Zealand actually defeated Sri Lanka by 98 runs to win the match. They started off in a very fine fashion, and Australia literally, I would say, they literally crushed England when Australia put up 342 for 9 on the board, and England were all out for 231. Well, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with the first match, and we had some eventful things happening on the first day of the World Cup. One was Aaron Finch. In fact, Brendan McCullum started it off by scoring the first 50 of the World Cup, and after that we saw Aaron Finch hitting a match-winning century. Being the first person on the first day of the World Cup itself, starting off with a bang when he actually benefited from a catch being dropped by Stuart Broad pretty early in the piece in the first over of Anderson, and he benefited, and finally he hurt England in a very, very bad manner as they went on to win the match, and Aaron Finch started off with a century. And also there was one more eventful thing that happened in the World Cup, and that was Stephen Finn not only taking a 5-wicket bag. In fact, in the match between Australia and England, we had 5-wicket bags from either side. First, it was the turn of Stephen Finn to go and actually take a 5-wicket bag, and after that, it was the turn of Mitchell Marsh to take a 5-wicket bag. But the Stephen Finn's 5-wicket bag was something pretty special, because during the slog overs, when Maxwell Haddin and the other batsmen tried to slog him, that was the time. What a start to the World Cup. I mean, you can't expect a better start to the World Cup. One is the host and the co-host winning the match, and also we had a century, we had 50s, we also had a hat-trick from Stephen Finn, and in probably it's almost 5 years since England had a hat-trick, and Stephen Finn was the one who had the proud privilege to do so. So what a start to the World Cup, and I thought it was a real fantastic start to the World Cup 2015, as record crowds drove into the Melbourne Cricket Ground at the Hagley Oval in Christchurch. But first, I'm going to start off with the first match between New Zealand and Sri Lanka. And as far as New Zealand and Sri Lanka is concerned, it all started with Angelo Matthews, the Sri Lankan skipper, actually winning the toss and deciding to invite the co-host New Zealand to bat first. And I thought that was very kind of him on a very, very easy pitch, one could say, at the Hagley Oval in Christchurch. It was looking absolutely picturesque, and well, in fact, New Zealand got off to a flying start thanks to Brendan McCullum and Martin Guptill, as Brendan McCullum was the one who was scoring all the runs, with Martin Guptill being a passive partner. And Brendan McCullum, let me tell you, he really got into Lasith Malinga. Now, Lasith Malinga was looking pretty listless, one could say, and he was really slammed for runs as McCullum hit him straight down the ground for sixes. He swung him for some six, in fact 1-6, and he also hit some beautiful boundaries. In fact, it was a flying start for the New Zealanders, as Martin Guptill and Brendan McCullum, the Sri Lankan pace bowling of Lasith Malinga, the experienced Lasith Malinga and Kulashekara, looking absolutely listless, as runs were absolutely ransacked, one could say, in the final in the first few overs of the New Zealand innings, as Martin Guptill and Brendan McCullum went on to put up in fact, what a start to the World Cup. In fact, they started off with a century partnership, which was 111 runs for the first wicket, and they did that in 16 overs. After that, it was the breakthrough was provided finally with Angelo Matthews and Rangana Herath actually bowling pretty well. They were the ones who did the sort of I would say a seal-up job there, in the sense they really tried to stop the run flow from the New Zealanders, and finally the breakthrough was provided as Brendan McCullum went on to score the first 50 of the World Cup 2015, and Brendan McCullum was the first to go, as Rangana Herath had Brendan McCullum holding out to the deep, caught by Mendes for 65, 49 balls with 10 fours and 1 6. After that, Guptill departed as Suranga Lakmal brought in, and Suranga Lakmal in the initial stages, I thought when he came in as first change, he was absolutely on the money. He was not giving anything away to the batsman, and he was bowling in measly fashion. In fact, in the first 6 overs, or 7 overs, 6 overs, in fact, Suranga Lakmal had just given away 14 runs, so that really gives you an idea as to how well he was bowling. And then Martin Guptill was the victim of some very tight bowling from Lakmal, as Martin Guptill was caught by Sangakkar, the bowling of Lakmal for 49 of 62 balls with 5 fours. And after that, it was one more wonderful partnership of 136. Kane Williamson, who was not looking pretty confident when he came on early, and then Ross Taylor at the other end. But then Kane Williamson slowly, I wouldn't say slowly, started getting his confidence, but one has to credit the New Zealanders, because there was some tight bowling going on when Angelo Matthews, Rangana Herath and Lakmal was operating. Even Dilshan was bowling well, and finally things were getting a bit tightened up. And then it was, as I said, Suranga Lakmal was also bowling well, and finally Kane Williamson had to take some breaks, and that was what precisely he was doing. And finally Kane Williamson, and in fact the New Zealand innings was actually progressing on in a very steady fashion, and the batting power play was being taken, and in the batting power play things started happening for Sri Lanka, as the partnership which had added a valuable 50 odd runs finally came to an end. And what an end to that. Jivanta Mendes was the bowler, and Jeevan Mendes first, in fact, he picked up 2 wickets of 2 balls to really put a spanner into the New Zealand works in the batting power play. As first he picked up the wicket of Kane Williamson, who was brilliantly caught, I thought, by Karunaratne in the deep. The ball was absolutely travelling to the fence of the bowling of Mendes, and Karunaratne just dived full length and picked up a beautiful catch at the fence. And Williamson was walking after making 57 runs of 65 balls with 5 fours and 1 6. And Ross Taylor followed immediately, and what a delivery from Mendes. It was a beautiful drifting delivery which actually beat Ross Taylor. Was probably trying to play it straight, but the ball actually spun away, and Ross Taylor was caught there. He was out of the crease. Sangakkar had whipped off the bails, and Ross Taylor was walking back after making 14 of 28 balls. And suddenly there were 2 new batsmen at the crease, Grant Elliott and Corey Anderson. And then the batting power play did not yield much runs, even though Corey Anderson scored some boundaries. But later on, because they had to have a bit of a restraint at that particular time, which Grant Elliott and Corey Anderson did it pretty well. And once they went through that, and then we saw Corey Anderson really coming into his own as he started hitting sixes. In fact, he hit Lasith Malinga. Lasith Malinga, as I said, probably in his career would have not been bowling like this. His figures were absolutely ravaged by the New Zealand batsman, and he was actually looking rusty. He was spraying the ball in all directions, and that really set the tail as Lasith Malinga finished his quota of 10 overs with 84 runs to his name, and that is something which we have never seen in one-day international cricket career in Lasith Malinga. And Lasith Malinga, as I said, was absolute. Kulashekara was taken to the cleaners. His 8 overs costing him 78 runs and 1 wicket. So Elliott making 29 of 34 balls with 2 fours, but Corey Anderson was there till the end as he was out of the final ball, but not before hurting the Sri Lankans to such an extent that he contributed 75 of 46 deliveries, 8 fours and 2 sixes. Luke Ronchi chipped in with an unbeaten 29 of 19 balls with 4 fours, and New Zealand ran up a huge total of 331 for 6 on the first day of the World Cup 2015. The bowling, Angelo Matthews, I thought, if you look at the bowling card for the Sri Lankans, Angelo Matthews, I thought, really bowled well. 6 overs for 28. Rangana Herath 9 overs, 1 for 37 was the pick, I would say. Dilshan 5 overs for 35. Lakmal, towards the closing stages, he was pretty costly after doing an excellent job in the first 7 overs. When he came for the death overs, he was absolutely rattled by Corey Anderson. 10 overs, no maiden, 262. Mendes 2 overs, no maiden, 2 for 5. As far as the Sri Lankan batting was concerned, well, the Sri Lankans, they started off in fine fashion. In fact, Dilshan and Lairu Thirumani, it was good to see Thirumani getting amongst the runs. And let me tell you, Thirumani was in fact, more than Dilshan, Tirumane was the one who was looking pretty impressive with his stroke making, and we were also seeing some glimpses of why he's been compared to Kumar Sangakkara, as he played some exquisite strokes and he was pretty attractive in his stroke making, and he was the one who was scoring all the runs as the partnership reached 67 for the first wicket. And finally Dilshan was gone as the experienced and the wily Vettori picked up the wicket, as Dilshan offered catching practice to Vettori, as he actually gave a catch back to Vettori. Vettori gleefully accepting the catch, and he was a goner. So that was the first wicket which got the breakthrough for Sri Lanka when Dilshan was gone for 24. After that it was Kumar Sangakkara with Tirumane in the middle. Tirumane continued to impress by playing some good strokes. He also hit some very good boundaries, and then Sangakkara came in, and that was the time the things were looking pretty good for Sri Lanka when the score had actually reached 124 in the 22nd over. They were pacing themselves pretty well there, but that was the time Trent Bolt came in and dealt a real blow to Sri Lanka, as he picked up a most important wicket. And as you know, Sangakkara is someone who has always been falling to Bolt, and I was a bit surprised that when the wicket of Dilshan fell, that the Brendan McCullum, the New Zealand captain, did not bring Trent Bolt on. Probably could have brought it, and he could have put the pressure on Sri Lanka, but well, finally it really proved, as Sangakkara trying to walk towards the left arm pace bowler Trent Bolt, and Trent Bolt getting the wicket of Sangakkara, as he had him LBW for 39 of 38 balls with 5 fours, and then Vettori getting the most experienced Jayawardene out for a blob, as Jayawardene was beaten, and the ball turned from Vettori, caught by Ronchi behind the wickets for duck. They made 125 for 3, and in fact Tirumane, after playing a very good knock, an attractive knock of 65, and that would be something which Sri Lanka would be very happy about, that Tirumane got into a bit of form here, which would augur well for the future of the future World Cup matches for Sri Lanka. But Tirumane was out for 60 balls with 8 fours. After that, there was not much of a resistance. Karunaratne was clean bowled by Min for 14 of 21 balls. Angelo Matthews was standing there, but unfortunately could not muster any support from the lower order Sri Lankan batsman. Angelo Matthews himself making 46 of 52 balls with 5 fours, and then finally it was a procession. Mendes was out for 4, Kulashekara was dismissed for 10, Corey Anderson picking up the wickets, Herat was out for 13, Malinga was out for 0, Lakmal not out on 7, and Sri Lanka folding up in the sense being all out for 233, and New Zealand starting off, co-host New Zealand starting off the World Cup with a bang here on Valentine's Day. New Zealand winning the match by 98 runs. As far as the bowling went, for New Zealanders, for the Kiwis, I would say, well, they had Tim Southee. I thought he bowled pretty well, 10 overs, 1 for 43, but Trent Bolt, probably his figures don't reflect, but he got those important scalps in the middle of the Sri Lankan innings, which was good to see. Trent Bolt 10 overs 264, Adam Min 10 overs no more than 256, was really ramping up his pace there. Vettori 10 overs really stood out, 2 for 34. Elliott 2 overs none for 11. Kane Williamson 1 over for 7. Anderson also chipped in with wickets, 3.1 overs no more than 2 for 18. And Corey Anderson of New Zealand, for his all-round performance, picked up the Man of the Match award on the first day. Well, from here, let's head off to the match between England and Australia. As I said, record crowds flocked in at the MCG, where England and Australia clashed at the MCG. As I said, hosts were playing their first match, and they were playing against arch rivals England. And let's have a look at what really happened there. As far as England were concerned, well, it was the toss which was won by Morgan, and Morgan decided to insert the Australians first. Well, Australia, they could have lost the first wicket pretty early in the piece, but as I said, Anderson's first over, what a costly miss it was, as Aaron Finch was dropped by Stuart Broad at the bowling of Anderson, and after that Finch was absolutely unstoppable, as Finch was the one who really went on slamming the English bowlers, and he contributed, and he made 135 of 128 balls with 12 fours and 3 sixes. Warner Well, he contributed 22 of 18 balls with 3 fours. He was clean bowled by Broad, and that was the time when the partnership for Australia was progressing on in a very serene fashion. Stuart Broad struck a double blow there when he first clean bowled David Warner for 22 of 18 balls with 3 fours, and Shane Watson was a first ball victim, as the very first ball of the World Cup Shane Watson received. He tickled it to Butler's hands behind the stumps. He was gone for a blob, and Australia suddenly from 57 for no loss were 57 for 2, and Stephen Smith came in, and Chris Wokes bowled superbly as he clean bowled Stephen Smith for 5, which made it 70 for 3, and then it was real batting as George Bailey, the captain, really came into some good form which was lacking for him. He really made it count. He had good support from Finch, and both of them really put up a big partnership. They helped the Australian innings recover from 70 for 3 in the 11th over, and they took the score on to 216. So that was a nice little partnership which built between Finch and Bailey. And finally Stephen Finn came in and picked up in fact Finch was run out after starting off and making the first century of the World Cup 2015, as he was run out for 135 of 128 deliveries with 12 fours and 3 sixes. Bailey contributing 55 of 69 balls with 3 fours, and after that it was still there was still some good batting to come, as Glenn Maxwell took advantage of the very loose bowling which was served by the English bowlers, as Maxwell went on to make 66 of 40 deliveries with 11 fours, with Mitchell Marsh chipping in with 23 of 20 balls with 3 fours, and Brad Hadding also making good here with 31 of 14 balls with 5 fours. And finally, as I said, Stephen Finn ended the Australian innings with a hat-trick and also picked up a 5-wicket bag. He gave away 71 runs, but he picked up 5 wickets, and that was pretty important. Mitchell Starc was not out on not. 342 for 9 was the final tally for Australia, and that was a good start to the World Cup 2015. Anderson, none for 67 of his full quota. Broad, 2 for 66. Wokes, 1 for 65. Finn, as I said, picked up not only a 5-wicket bag, also on the very first day of the World Cup, the hat-trick has been taken. 10 overs, no made, and 71 runs on 5 wickets for Stephen Finn. Moeen Ali was very costly, 9 overs, 60 runs without a wicket. Joe Root, 1 over for 11 runs. As far as the England innings was concerned, well, England innings, well, they didn't have a good start, and let me tell you, it was a matter of a 5-wicket back for Mitchell Marsh, Mitchell Starc and Mitchell Johnson rattling the Englishmen pretty early on, as Moeen Ali was out to the victim, was a victim to Mitchell Starc for 10 of 13 balls with 2 fours, Bell making 36 of 45 balls with 4 fours, but it was the breakthrough was provided by Mitchell Starc, and then Mitchell Marsh coming in and picking up 4 wickets. First he picked up the wicket of Ian Bell for 36. Gary Valens, who came into the team today at the expense of Ravi Bopara, was sent back to the pavilion for 10 of 13 balls with 2 fours. Joe Root was caught behind the bowling of Marsh for 5. Some splendid bowling from Marsh, and Morgan continued his poor form there as he was out for a duck, as he was caught behind, and like England were reduced by Marsh. When Butler also was taken, Butler was out for 10 of the bowling of Marsh, which gave Marsh a 5-wicket bag, and Marsh was the one who did all the damage there, as England were reduced to 92 for 6 in the 22nd over, and then it required someone to put a big partnership. Well, it definitely came in the form of Joe Root, so not Joe Root, it was Jay Taylor. Taylor was along with Chris Wokes, and both of them slowly tried to really pull England out of the mire at 92 for 6, and as the partnership went on to add 92 runs for the 7th wicket, and finally when everything was going in, Chris Wokes actually did well with making 37. It was the time Chris Wokes was finally dismissed for 37 of 42 balls, 2 fours by Mitchell Johnson. That broke it, and finally it was only Taylor all the way, but Taylor, well, he could only, it was a pity that Taylor couldn't get to his century, but Taylor kept on fighting, but after Chris Wokes he couldn't find any support at the other end, as Taylor himself finished with an unbeaten 98, an impressive 98, with lots of dabs, sweeps, reverse sweeps, and pulls 98 of 90, dealt with 11 fours and 2 sixes, and that will give him lots of confidence going into the future matches here. Chris Woakes was out for 37, and finally the Australian innings wound up for 231. Broad out for Duck, Finn out for 1, Anderson out for 8, 231 all out, and Australia going on to a big win in that first match of the World Cup 2015, and they won the match by 111 runs. A beautiful start for Australia to the World Cup. As far as the bowling was concerned, Mitchell Starc 9 overs 1 minute 2 for 47, bowled superbly. Mitchell Johnson 8 overs no minute 2 for 36, but the man that stood out was Mitchell Marsh, who reduced England to 92 for 6 with some splendid bowling. 9 overs no maiden, 33 runs and 5 wickets. Splendid bowling spell from Mitchell Marsh, which floored England, one could say. Hazelwood 6.5 overs no maiden, none for 45. Watson 3 overs for 13. Maxwell 4 overs costing him 33. 2 overs for 19 for Stephen Smith. And that was the end of the match. Aaron Finch was named man of the match. So hosts and co-hosts Australia and New Zealand starting off the World Cup with a bang, with victories over the respective opposition. And today there's a crunch match coming up, and what a match that is going to be. As you know, in Adelaide Oval, India and Pakistan are going to bat, and whether the question mark is over Pakistan, whether they can actually break the jinx that they have the World Cup, where they have never defeated India. Can they do it? That is the million dollar a question which is arising, and it would be interesting to see at Adelaide Oval, and crowds are going to flock. As you know, in 10 minutes time, all the tickets at the Adelaide Oval was absolutely sold out between India and Pakistan. That really gives you the feeling how energetic this match is going to be at the Adelaide Oval, and crowds are going to flock, and we are going to see real sparks flying between India and Pakistan. And well, whether India keep up the same track record of never giving Pakistan a chance to win a match against India in the World Cup, or whether Pakistan, with their current form, can they break the jinx today in World Cup 2015. And also one more match which is coming up, which is between South Africa and Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe, as you know, they have been doing pretty well under Dave Watmore, and they have won some very good. In fact, they upset the apple cart of Sri Lanka in the warm-up matches, where today they are going to take on the mighty South Africans. And these are the two matches which are coming up, and I'll be back with a full match report tomorrow. Until then, it's goodbye for the day. Thank you.